4 more years of what? I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle now. And Bill, I thought we'd get a little reflective on this episode, and not to get too cocky, kid, as you always warn us about President Trump's reelection. However, it came to me earlier today as I was listening to all the debate over who's going to be the Democratic nominee, and they all have their agenda and they all have a reason why they want you to elect them, that perhaps there could be more to reelecting President Trump than just reelecting President Trump. In other words, Bill, as a constitutional conservative, you yourself, you look at the possibility of another 4 years of President Trump and kind of a wish list of what would you hope to see accomplished during that time. And I guess when I say that, what comes to your mind first as you think would be the number one priority of a second Trump administration?
Well, I have a wish list and I have an expect list.
Do the wishes first. We'll get to expectations.
My wish list would be to see the rule of law restored in the United States. And that means bringing indictments against people who've committed lifelong series of crimes against the United States. And because I'm aware of the fact that this kind of thing is tantamount to civil war, actually prosecuting for people for crimes they've committed, especially in the wake of the impeachment proceedings where half of the country believes that Donald Trump is guilty of things that no one can really quite explain and that there doesn't seem to be much evidence for. Put that aside for a second. If it were me, and I know some people disagree with this, and probably most people disagree with this, if it were me, I would bring indictments against all of these people, against Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, James Comey. I'd bring them against Brennan. I'd bring them against Strzok. I'd bring them against all these people. I'd bring them against all these people, and I'd get them convicted, and then I would pardon them. And the reason I would pardon them is because while I'm fully convinced that they all deserve to spend a long, long time in jail, and even though I'm utterly convinced that they're guilty of the crimes that they've committed, I don't see any world where the country continues to function if justice is actually served. I don't know how to put it any plainer than that.
You sound kind of like Nancy Pelosi saying because they didn't have a real trial because there were no witnesses, therefore President Trump wasn't actually acquitted, that he's forever impeached. It sounds like you want the same thing to happen to people like James Comey and Hillary Clinton.
No, it's not a question of that. Forever impeached is a political statement. It's a temper tantrum statement. It's hanging an asterisk against a guy. It's not a conviction, and it's not a. Look, one of the things that's been interesting, and about the only thing you could say I think has been interesting about the impeachment process, is that I said while I think it's utterly immoral and utterly unjustified, it is in the strictest sense of the word legal. The House has the power to do what they did. The Senate has the power to do what it did. And as far as I'm concerned, the system worked in terms of justice. I think that the charges were ridiculous, and I think that aspect of it was extremely damaging. But from a strictly legal point of view, in terms of cranking the Constitution around and having the little gears turn, the whole thing happened the way it was supposed to happen in terms of legality. So I don't consider the impeachment thing to be anything other than just a PR brand. It's almost like Nancy Pelosi declaring that Pelosi brand toothpaste is recommended by 9 out of 10 dentists. That's how much impact that has on me.
Can I ask you a follow up on your first?
But hang on. But a conviction followed by a pardon is different. Which is why I think that the Democrats would have been wise to do the censoring option, because a censure of the president is in fact a form of it's a form of legal judgment in a way, in the way that a failed impeachment isn't. So. It's kind of like the difference between, look, if I accuse you of doing something and offer you a plea bargain, you take the plea bargain, you have to plead guilty in order to get the plea bargain. That would be censure. If I decide I'm going to take it to court and I can't convict you, you're acquitted, which means you're innocent because we have the presumption of innocence in this country. But what I'm talking about is convincing the American people that laws do apply to everybody in this country, even if you're a high-powered Democrat. And then I think the act of pardoning after that, basically, look, if you were to have Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and all the rest of them lined up and sent to jail, which is what they deserve under the legal system. And listen, I understand that to many people that's an assertion, but I could spend a great deal of time putting together a pretty compelling case, and the people who are fans of the shows knows what that case is. So if it turns out that you were to march them off into jail, there'd be civil war. And so I would say that the thing to do would be to find them guilty and then pardon them, not in their name, but in the name of the American people, in the name of their supporters. Say, the American people have put huge numbers of the American people put their faith and trust in these people and they were not aware of these criminal activities. Therefore, we're going to pardon them. That's what I would do if it were me.
Bill, I would,
but I would like to see some sort of rule of law.
You're living in kind of a utopian world if you think that.
I asked you. I said a wish list, not an expect list.
But let me specifically get to that. Okay, so it's a wish list, something you like to see happen. I'm not accusing you of utopianism because you wish for such a thing to happen. What I'm saying is I don't think it would accomplish what you think it would accomplish, even if it could be done, simply because it would. There's not a single Republican who would be on your list of those to whom justice must be meted out. They'd be all Democrats, and it would be another partisan exercise at the end of which the Democrats would feel even more stung than before and feel like they need to mete out retribution if they ever get back in charge. And so I guess I would ask, do you have any ideas for sort of systemic reforms in the system of justice so we don't wind up in this tit-for-tat political battle forever?
So now you're asking me to abandon my wish list and go to my hope list.
If you want to see it that way.
I do want to see it that way. Okay. I actually have my hope list is straight. I've got 75 lists, Scotty. You just tell me which one you want to hear. But my hope list and my expectation list are actually pretty close on this one. My wish list is off on the far side of the moon. That's not going to happen. But my hope list and my expectation list are pretty close. My hope list is that by electing Donald Trump for 4 more years, we will have in that time had the opportunity to eliminate the 8 years of and more of the utter corruption of the United States government, starting with and primarily focused around the Justice Department. The genius of Barack Obama and the progressive plan throughout the middle part of the 2010s was that they understood that if you could control justice, if you could control the Justice Department, and this entire thing is predicated on having a press that is your, it's your familiar, in the like the old wizard sense. This is my owl. It goes and flies off and does what I tell it to. If you have press coverage, let me rephrase that. If you have the cover of the press on top of you so you can get away with what you want to, then taking over the Justice Department means that once you've got justice, you can do anything. If you own the Justice Department politically, then the Justice Department can simply decide not to investigate crimes or whatever evidence laid in front of them. And we saw this in living color live on TV when the head of James Comey's, when the head of the FBI, which is a department of the Department of Justice, stood up and said, here are all the crimes that Hillary Clinton committed, and I recommend we do not prosecute. And then the Attorney General said, well, if the FBI doesn't think we have a case, I guess we better not do anything. So if you can corrupt the Justice Department, then everything else follows. You can get away with anything. And you just simply decide what cases to prosecute and which ones not to.
So that's what I want you to drill down on, Bill, though, because I think we're still in the realm of politics and not of actual reform.
Let me finish. I'm trying to set the stage for what has happened here. My hope and my expectation is that with 4 more years of Donald Trump and his entirely outsider attitude towards this, it becomes clear that a number of people, so much of what happened during the Obama administration was due to what I remember Victor Davis Hanson said it first, so it's got to be true. He said that these people are governing as if they never expect to lose another election again. 2016 proved them wrong. And I think what we can look at in the last several years is is all of these people, Biden, Clinton, all of them running for cover as fast as they can. So let's say that we don't get my wish list of actual justice being served. But my hope and my expectation would be that if you have another 4 years in addition to his first 4 years, that Donald Trump would be able to make it clear to people inside the Justice Department that this is going to return to what it used to be, which is a defender of the American people and not a political weapon of one of the parties of the American people. And I think already his election has scared enough of these termites back into the woods, because they've come to realize that they have enormous exposure now. And since you're already basically granted the fact that most of this can't be done retroactively, if it became clear that, no, it turns out the American people are in fact sovereign in this country, that they will decide who will be the next government of the United States and not the people who are already in the government. If that starts to sink in, then we can see some real benefits. And the other part of this that is essential, and the part that I think is going to happen regardless of who's president, is the essential dissolution of the mainstream news media as we understand it, which is not a political event. It's not going to hinge on votes. It's not going to hinge on anything. It's an inevitable result of information age technology and the decentralization of information. The news media that has protected these people for 50 and 60 years is essentially finished. All of whatever was left of their credibility they put on the line to get Hillary Clinton elected in 2016. Everybody knows that these are now simply partisan hacks. And if you want to say Fox is a partisan hack for conservatives, that's fine. But nobody trusts the news anymore. Walter Cronkite can't get out there and say, that's the way it is, and have people believe that's the way it is. So with the news media essentially finished, and with the internet providing thousands and thousands of sources for news, the ability to get away with what they got away with, I think, is systemically over. And that's what I'm hoping for and expecting if Donald Trump gets another 4 years.
So I guess maybe you can't even ask this question anymore in the post-Trumpian era.
You can ask any question you want.
Seriously, I don't know if this question can exist, because if you had asked 30 years ago, why would you hope that a Republican president would get elected or reelected to office? There would have been a laundry list of economic and regulatory and judicial reforms and constitutional, either hewing to the existing Constitution or rolling back some excesses of constitutional interpretation or amendment. And there would have been this whole sort of, Barry Goldwaterian, National Reviewian kind of heritage foundational laundry list.
Goldwater's
now
exactly
it seems like
who
it's
I
all
thought
caught
of.
up in the personality of President Trump or Hillary Clinton. And
correct.
So there's nothing.
No, on the contrary. Look, I think maybe the way to think about this is to think about like some horrible storm like the Galveston hurricane or something like that. Some catastrophe comes into the country and nearly drowns everybody in it. This is my perspective, but it's also the truth. Some horrible catastrophe happens to the country, and there is this major behind the scenes underground effort to deny the sovereignty of the United States to the American people and to have it be assumed by people inside Washington, elites in government schools, news media, tycoons, and all the rest who know what's better for us than we do. So that's the storm. We managed to survive the storm because of a miracle that happened on the 1st November of 2016. And we ended up with a guy who is not the kind of person who's going to be talking about things like Barry Goldwater or even like Ronald Reagan, not the kind of guy who's going to be talking about important foundational redirections for the country. We're now talking about a guy whose job is to make sure that the bodies are disposed of and that the debris is swept from the street and that law is maintained and so on until the catastrophe of this storm has passed, at which point regular civil government can take over again. Now, I'm not saying Donald Trump is using dictatorial powers to do that. He's using mimetical powers to do that. He's using his ability to use the press and manipulate the press, which I said was the only person who had a chance to save this country. But eventually, you can hope that if Donald Trump is elected for 4 more years, then after that, we might see somebody like Nikki Haley, for example, who is nothing like as as flamboyant or as demonstrative or as maybe even as ill-disciplined as Donald Trump, because she doesn't have to be. Because by that time, the restoral of the country to the people who it belongs to, and the fundamental cleaning out of this horrific mess of elitism will have been largely accomplished. And by that point, if the system starts to function again, if the body starts breathing on its own, then you can take it off of life support. That's the way I look at things right now. That's how bad I think things were. And I think most people that elected Donald Trump also understood that. As a matter of fact, not just understood it, the gamble they made with Donald Trump in 2016 was predicated on just how dire the situation was, just how extraordinarily severe the emergency was. And they gambled on some pretty unorthodox medicine. And there have been side effects, but it appears to have saved the patient. And I think certainly 4 more years of this treatment will have saved the patient, at which point you can go back to relative health. And the second part of this equation is not what Donald Trump has done to the Republicans. The second part of the equation will be determined in 2020, conceivably. It may take them longer than that to learn their lesson. But if the Democrats run Bernie Sanders and they decide to run on the socialist, far left, social justice warrior agenda, and they get walloped the way I believe they're going to get walloped, and I believe they're going to get walloped because the top Democrats believe they're going to get walloped. That's the second half of the equation. That's the second half. The first half in 2016, Donald Trump comes as a result of the conservatives in the country and puts an end to this ongoing corruption, starts to reverse it. And then in 2020, what's left of this anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-human, anti-everything party, this entire progressive philosophy, is utterly trashed at the polls. Then the Democrats will swing back towards the center. And by 2024, we will have an election that looks more like the kind of election that most of us would like to see in this country, a selection between two opposing viewpoints about how best to help the country, and pros and cons on either side.
Well, while that argument may not be settled in your favor, I'll tell you what, there is something that you can do that will make things better for you. And that's that you can sign up for the Bill Whittle cruise that's happening May 15th through the 18th. I'll be there. Steve Green will be there. Our lovely spouses will be there. And the time is ticking away. You are running out of time. In fact, by the time you see this, it may be too late. So you should go to BillWhittle.com. And if the picture of the big white ship is still there, click on that ship and sign up for your cabin. It's just 3 days, but it'll be crucial for relaxation and rejuvenation and refueling in preparation for the big push to November of 2020. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have a lot of fun and laughter. It will be a party on the sea, and we're looking forward to meeting you there as well. If you're not a member at BillWhittle.com yet, you can also do that when you go to BillWhittle.com. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.